Fork in the Loaf. My name is Heather. Today, it's been a long time. It's been 4 months. I went back and checked. So I've had a lot of things going on in the last 4 months. I mean, it was July. We had a family reunion. I've switched jobs. I'm in the same company, but I went from being like the shop coordinator to now I'm working for e-commerce, which is kind of exciting because it helps me learn a little bit more about all this techie stuff, which I kind of love. Not very great at it, but I love it. Anyway, so I've had to start bringing lunches with me to work again, and I I figured there's the Helene has happened, and Milton, I think that's the name of that the second one that hit Florida right afterwards. And I'm way over here in the comfort zone of Treasure Valley, Idaho, where, knock on wood, nothing really horrible has happened to us. But my heart is just broken for those people that have lost their homes. Justin Rose is somebody I follow a lot, and his whole farm is having to be reset. Jessica Soward on Roots and Refuge is another person I follow, and the damage that was done to her place. And then Bree and Art and Bree, shout out to you guys for all the work that you guys are doing for that community. I just really feel like it's kind of struck a chord for me. Way back in '94, my daughter Morgan was born. Something kind of, I don't know if it was something from my church. I know with my church, I'm Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they're very actively involved in food storage, being prepared, being financially prepared, being spiritually prepared, being physically prepared, all those things. Being prepared, because when you are prepared, there's no fear. And I know that when COVID hit and then watching all this stuff with that and Katrina, I just remember when you are prepared. Granted, not always does that preparedness, but I'm not going to get into that because that's fear mongering. But when you are prepared, there's no fear. And I'm going to use the example of toilet paper during the pandemic, which I thought that was the strangest thing. We had toilet paper. We have a year's supply of toilet paper almost always on hand. And I remember at one point going, I know I've got a year's supply. I hope it comes back, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I got to get to the store and get some toilet paper. So we were prepared that way. We were prepared with a lot of things. So it didn't really hurt us a whole lot, thank goodness. But that is because of the years and years and years of preparation that I have been. It's almost like a hobby for me, like a drive, like I feel not a pressure. I feel a drive, I guess, to do food storage. So on that note, I'm going to turn you down. I'm going to stop right there for just a second on the food storage thing. I'm going to make a chicken patty that I just saw on, I think it was a YouTube short. And it was a raw chicken patty. And to catch you up with some things in my life, I've been seeing a doctor at Functional Medicine of Idaho in Boise, and we found out that I had SIBO methane. I found out that I've got IBS, and some other things like that on top of my low thyroid stuff. Went to go see a nutritionist through Functional Medicine of Idaho as well, because not only did I did a low FODMAP for 2 weeks, which was it was fabulous. It was hard because, you don't do garlic, you don't do onion, you don't do apples, you don't do celery, you don't do all these things that I love. And I don't love onions, but, everything else. There's a lot of things, avocados, anything that was high on the FODMAP list, I had to avoid for 2 weeks. Low FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and disaccharide. I think that's what FODMAP stands for. And I'm probably butchering the how you say it. I'm probably butchering the terminology or how you say it, but it was kind of fabulous. Like, it stopped a lot of my bloating. It stopped a lot of my tummy issues that I was having. So in seeing the nutritionist, because, once you get that low FODMAP, you start reintroducing things. And I'm getting so frustrated because, you hear this is good for you, this is not good for you. This is, but, eat this, don't eat this, eat that, don't eat that, you know, and there's just all this back and forth and back and forth. And I really want something that is sustainable. I want something that is, and I mean sustainable in the broader, you know, like the broader term of not where it's located and all that kind of stuff, but sustainable in how you eat. And I believe that God put us on the earth to eat a certain way, you know, to eat all the foods, not to cut out a whole category like grains, not to cut out a whole category like meat, not to cut out a whole category like fruits. You know, like I look at doing the keto, I just didn't feel right not being able to eat fruit. I didn't feel right not being able to eat sweet potatoes. To me, that's not sustainable. And so, and low FODMAP is not sustainable. That is not something that you are supposed to do long term. That is something you do to cut out all those things and then you reintroduce them and find out what's bothering you. And unfortunately, garlic is one of those things that kind of bother me. I kind of should have known because onion's really hard on me. So what I think, I haven't totally omitted garlic, but I have been using the granulated garlic. It's been cooked. If I use fresh garlic clove, oh, it's harsh. So I've been trying to incorporate more of this into my diet because I do love garlic. I just try to keep it minimal. I can eat all the chili peppers I want, which is great because I love Korean red chili flakes. And I can eat all the meat. In seeing the nutritionist, found out that I'm not eating enough protein, I'm not getting enough calories, and I need more iodine and what was it? Oh, more fiber. So I'm like, how do you do all that? I thought I was eating so much food, and yet calorically I was only at like 1,700 calories. And I feel like I'm eating like 4,000 calories a day, and apparently I'm not. So with that being said, I'm gonna point you down. I'm gonna show you one of the things that one of the things I'm learning to do is to prepare protein that's easily accessible. So like boiled eggs, egg bites, which I think I've already shown you how I do those. And I've done meatballs. I've done, today I'm gonna do a chicken patty that I found on a roll or a reel or something. I think it was a YouTube short. And I wish I could remember who it was that did it. I'm not that techy yet where I can go back and find out who it was, but you know, shout out to whoever did this. It was it looks fabulous. And while I'm doing that and I'm cutting the meat up and I'm doing all that stuff that's prepping for this, I just kind of want to talk to you about some of the stuff that I know about being prepared. So I'm going to do a double whammy here. So give me just a moment and I'll be right back with you. Talk about food storage while I'm cutting up this chicken. You're going to use 2 chicken breasts for this recipe. And I believe you can chop it up really fine if you want to. It looked like she just did small chunks. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. In the 30 years of food storage that I've been doing, I started out, let's see, where do I begin? It's kind of been a little bit of a hobby or a passion of mine. I think I might have a little bit of a food insecurity, but I've always been in love or fascinated with like the olden days, traditional ways of living. I kind of feel like I was born in the wrong era. I should have been born back in the days of people who settled the Americas. I would have loved to have lived in that era. Maybe not with the violence, maybe not without electricity. You know, I do kind of love the amenities. I don't know if I could ever be an off-grid person, but I really love cooking outside. I love cooking, finding ways to cook that don't require electricity or gas. I love to cook on a campfire. One of my favorite things about camping is cooking outside. So, and I remember learning to crochet because in case I ever needed a blanket, I wanted to have the ability to make a blanket. I've learned to quilt a little bit. I'm not very good at it. It takes a little bit too much precision, and I'm not super precise like that. And it's really encouraged. It's been encouraged by our church leaders for years and years one of the things I think that most people are familiar with our church is that we do food storage, and that it's important to us to do that kind of stuff. Even if you're not a member, though, it's still a smart choice. I look at the things that are going on down in Helene, and really that's the one that's most visible to me because it's the people that I watch on YouTube. They're all dealing with that kind of stuff. One of the number one things I'm finding on there, you know, the big thing is there is no way to prepare for what they went through, and I totally understand that. And there's not always going to be the ideal situation to be prepared for, but you know, there are some situations that it's come in very, very handy for me and my family. I don't get into the fear mongering of preparedness. I don't think that I'm not a per se prepper, but to be prepared is very important to me. I don't get into the conspiracy theories and all that stuff. It's just, to me, that's not what being prepared is as much about for me. Being prepared is just so that I don't have to deal with fear. When everybody's during the pandemic and during this Helene thing, you know, the big thing that I'm hearing is there's no water. That is one thing that I need to get working on myself. I had a 55-gallon drum that was all filled up. It has to be changed out about every 6 months because, it's hard with a 55-gallon drum. I don't have a really good place to put it yet. We are we're about ready to move. That's kind of a thing that I'm going to bring up to you guys later on. We are purchasing a couple acres, and we're going to have a house built for us and all that fun stuff. So while it's important for me to be prepared, I also understand having to move is not fun, trying to move a 55-gallon drum of water, nor is it fun to try to empty it all the time. So that is kind of on hold until we get over there. But like during the pandemic, when the shelves started getting bare and the toilet paper ran out, and eggs were $15 was it $15 for 5 dozen or something like that? Eggs were looking at $7-8. I think they even got up to $12 in some places for like a dozen or an 18-pack of eggs, which to me, that's crazy. We have chickens, so we were able to not have to buy into that fear of not having eggs. We were prepared in that sense. With the food, no fear on no food on the shelves and stuff. There wasn't a lot of fear for us. Hold that thought. I'm gonna put 3 eggs in here from my chickens. See how pretty? I'm gonna get some green or blue eggers too here eventually, but when we get to the property. All right, so to my chicken, real quick, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of salt, and y'all, I use Himalayan pink salt so that it's got all the yummy good qualities in it for you. That was another thing that my doctor said. She had me started drinking 20 ounces of water with half of a lemon squeezed in it with a 1/4 teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt, because apparently I'm not getting enough sodium in my diet. I'm going to add, this is not in the recipe that she used. I'm going to add probably about a half of a teaspoon of Korean red chili flakes, which I probably could have subbed this in for the paprika, but white pepper's not on hers, but I'm going to add a little, probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon of white pepper, because there's something about white pepper that adds something. I don't like a lot of it. My garlic, I will probably, she called for 2 teaspoons of garlic, y'all. I'm putting in about 1/4 of a teaspoon because I can't do a lot of garlic, which is sad. So I will doctor it in other ways, like with the chili flakes, the white pepper. I'm going to add probably about 1/2 of a teaspoon of black pepper. Chives, I'm okay with chives. I'm going to add probably a big heaping teaspoon. And this is the thing about making your own food, you guys. You get to doctor it the way you want to doctor it. Hers called for 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and I don't have to put 2 teaspoons in just because it's her recipe. Cayenne, I'm going to put in 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Cayenne's something that I've just recently started using a little bit more. I did not realize it wasn't so hot, and I did not realize that it had all these healing properties. So I've gotten on board with that. This is mayonnaise that I just made the other day. And I'm going to add, I got about 2 tablespoons in there, and I'm just going to add all of that. It calls for 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise. And that is close enough. One of the things I do with my mozzarella cheese is I divvy it up into small bags because we just don't use it enough to keep it from going bad. If we get like this, we'll go through it before it goes bad. Mozzarella cheese, we won't. And so I have to kind of break it up because the freezing process kind of does a little bit of weird stuff to it. But she called for 1/2 block of shredded mozzarella cheese, and I don't know what that means, because a block to me could be a 2-pound block, it could be a 5-pound block, it could be a little 1-pound block. But it looked like she put in about 1/2 cup to a cup, so I'm gonna guesstimate. And y'all, this is all stuff that I have in my food storage. All of this is. The perishables I keep in the freezer. I don't with this. I don't have a year supply of this either, or this. But I keep, I definitely have a 3-month supply. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. So I'm going to put in a good rough, I'm going to put in all of that. And then just mix that up. So in the food storage world, there's a few rules that I follow. There is the first and #1 most important to me is store what you eat and eat what you store. You are not, if you don't love beans, I know beans are one of the best things to store because they last forever and ever and ever. But if you don't eat beans, you don't like beans, your family doesn't eat beans, why store those? You're not going to eat them when you're starving. Well, you would. Everybody would eat whatever they needed to when they starve. But why make it something that's not going to feed your family health well? I love beans. I've learned to love beans more and more as I've learned to use them more and more. But if we didn't love, like for me, garlic is not something I can do a lot of. I would love to grow garlic and have garlic hard, the scapes, and do things with those. And that's kind of like a bucket list of mine. And maybe someday when my gut's all better and healed up, I could do that. But right now, while my gut's in the current situation that it's in, that is not something that I can do. So I'm not going to store a lot of garlic. I'm not going to grow a lot of garlic. It's just something that doesn't work for me and my family. So that's not something that's going to be in my storage. Rice is something that we like. So I'm going to store rice. We love beans, so I'm going to store beans. And part of food storage is not just survival, in my opinion, but survival comes first. It's also thriving. You don't just need to survive, you need to thrive in a situation that it is not where it's hard to thrive. Mind you, survival comes first. I need to put that out there. Survival does come first. So beans and rice together make kind of a perfect amino complex from what I understand. So having those two things as a meal in a starvation survival situation, suck it up, learn to like beans. That's my humble opinion. You don't have to follow that. So I'm going to use bacon grease because it's bacon grease. And I was just thinking about bacon would be kind of yummy in this. Of course, my pan's getting too hot. My second rule, okay, so I'm going to drop these just by the spoonful because we're going to make patties that are easy to grab and go. My second rule that I like to follow is I don't go into debt to do food storage or to be prepared. If it's going to put you in debt, it's kind of doing the opposite of what it should be doing. I'm going to do about 4 minutes on each side. And I've got bread in the oven, so I can't use that timer. So no debt. Don't go into debt to get your food storage done. If you're going into debt to get your food storage done, you're doing it. Part of food storage is financial, so we'll get into that too. So if you're going into debt to get your food storage up, then you're being counterproductive to the whole picture of your food storage. There's ways, and I'm kind of gonna do a series on this because this is something that I love this. I mean, it's important to me. It's my hobby, and it's something that I feel like I have the knowledge base to help other people with this. I have a lot of people, the number one thing I hear people say is, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to put it, all that kind of stuff. And that's something that we're going to get into. So you want to store as much as your circumstances allow you to store. There's some laws in other countries or laws in other states that don't allow for some food storage. Here in Idaho, it's really it's very conservative, so that is part of our background. They're all about growing things and having chickens, and so I love that. So don't break any laws, but do what you can and don't make it a financial burden. The number 3 rule that I have is get your 3-month supply up. Start with a 72-hour kit if that's something that's going to help you, and we're going to do a video on that. But get a 3-month supply up first. Way to do that is get every week, create a menu and do it for 3 months, and then put that on rotation and make sure it's all your family favorites. Make sure it's things that you guys will eat, will provide all the nutritional value that you need, and fits your budget and fits your capacity, your circumstances. Start with your first week, buy double of everything, put 1 double away. Don't use that for your next week. Or if you do, when you go to buy the next week, buy double of that week's, if you can afford it. If not, I mean, there were times when all I could afford was some extra tomato sauce or extra pasta or extra beans or something like that, and that's okay. It's not something that you have to go out and get everything done at once. But start with your 3-month supply, because that's small, simple, and it's a goal that's attainable. And then work your way, really you could start with your 3 days. And that's where I was going with that 3 days, 72-hour kit, is get 3 days worth of food set up. If your family likes oatmeal, that's a really good, easy, storable thing for a 72-hour kit. If your family likes bacon and eggs, that's going to be a little rough because bacon is not storage, it's not shelf stable. But for food storage purposes, bacon in your freezer is not a bad thing. Once you've got your 3 months steady, then you can move into your 1 year. There's another thing about that though. You have to change your mindset. If you're one of those people that we need this, we need this, we need this, that is going to stop you at what you need. You need to move past that to what could we need next month? What could we need for the full year? What could we need for 3 months? So change your mindset on that from what you need tomorrow to what you need tomorrow. It's kind of a different mindset. When my husband and I first got married, he was very much about what we need right now. And he has slowly shifted to that mindset that we work on things that we need throughout the year, kind of a thing. Like when we buy toilet paper, how many packs of toilet paper do we need that's going to last us a year? A lot of times we will open things and we'll put a date on the package that we opened it so we can determine how long it took us to use that item. So say like a gallon of vinegar, white vinegar, and I use that in my mayonnaise. I use that to clean. I use that for all sorts of things. Bread's done. And these are ready to turn over. I'll turn you down. These kind of look fabulous. The smaller ones are going to stay together better, apparently. Which, it's not ground chicken, so I guess that makes sense. All right, so my 4th rule, and this one's very important as well. Rotate. Rotate, rotate, rotate. What you bring into your food storage, you're storing what you eat and eating what you store. So you should have a constant rotation. Your newest goes to the back, your oldest gets moved to the front. That's standard with anything, everything anyway. You're not going to buy 2 blocks of cheese and eat up your freshest one when you have an older one sitting here, because you're not going to be able to eat all that older one if you're eating off the new one, right? Your milk, same. You got 2 gallons of milk. You've got one that's half full because it's been, you've had it in the fridge for a week, and you got another gallon that you've just bought from the grocery store. You're going to open up that brand new one and let the half a gallon go bad. You're going to rotate. So that's very important. Kind of one of your more important things, especially when you get into your year supply and your long-term storage and stuff like that, that rotation is kind of key to having food that will last longer. My 5th rule is water. And really that should be one of the number one things that you're working on. It is the number one thing that will kill you the fastest, that will hurt you the fastest. You have to have water. And it's the hardest thing to store because there's a lot of water that you need. We figure, from what I understand, you need roughly a gallon a day to survive, to thrive. And that's, we're talking like for drinking, cooking, making juices. If you have powdered milk, because you're storing powdered milk, you can't store raw milk. You're storing powdered milk for baking purposes or to drink or to make cereal or whatever. That is something that you are going to need water for. If you have a cake mix or a box mix, that's not something we do, but that is an easy to store thing. Up to a year, you're going to need water to make some of that stuff. Pancake mix, you're going to need water. So that 1 gallon a day is more than just drinking a glass of water here and there. It is about cooking things as well, rehydrating things, etc. So store as much as possible. Use clean, non-leaking containers, like 2-liter pop. Clean those out. The 1 gallon jugs of juice, clean those out. You can use those to store water. If you use tap water from the municipal that's been treated, you can store that 6 months, and then you want to empty everything out and refill it. If you have a Berkey, like I have a Berkey right here, that's something that I can put from my 55-gallon drum into. I can get a pitcher out, pour it in there, filter it down, and that is potable water. I can drink that. So having something like that, I don't know how well a Brita does, but they're cheaper, way cheaper than that Berkey. Any sort of a filtering system would be smart to have for a food storage purpose. If it is untreated water, like where we're going to, we've got a well dug already, so we'll be using well water. We'll have to treat that ourselves, and you can do that. We're going to have a video on that sometime later. Number 6 rule for me is financial. So we, in getting this house, we've gotten out of debt. We've got a little nest egg going. You want 3 months worth of bills of money saved up. And I know that's not realistic for some people. I know that's really hard. If you have $1,500 in bills every month, you want to have $1,500 for 3 months saved up. Was that $45? $4,500. Have $4,500 to $5,000. Have $4,500 to $5,000 saved up for that. And it's money you don't touch. It's money that is set aside in your food storage, and you can have it in cash. You can have it in an account. Kind of smarter either way. My understanding, when things go down or there's cash only lasts so long. Once you get to a certain point, that cash is no good. But you're going to need enough. Like for us, I think the biggest thing that has ever happened to us is my husband and I, when we first got married, he didn't have a job for 6 months, and he moved up to live with me. I had kids, small kids living with me. So he moved up to Washington to live with me, and that was 6 months that he struggled finding a job in the area. And we lived off of my food storage because my one income was not sufficient to feed all of us, plus pay for the housing and all that kind of stuff. So having that food storage saved our hind ends. Now, in that case, we had electricity, we had running water, we had all of those kinds of things. So it wasn't like we were trying to survive in that kind of in a rough situation. It was more like trying to survive in a normal environment. So I think when these get cold, they'll be nice. So because I'm using cast iron, I got to make sure there's some grease on there. Smart thing to do would be to make sure this is cooked. So I'm gonna yep, it's over 165, so we're good. Okay. So we got to my rule number 6. Rule number 7, long-term storage supply. That's going to be a whole nother video because that is going, or more. Your long-term food storage is going to be more like your rice, your beans, your sugar, your flour, your wheat. If you do whole wheat, if you have a grinder, like I have a back behind all that stuff, I have a grain mill. I have a hand crank grain mill in case there's no power. And knowing how to use them, that's kind of important too. So I know a lot of the long storage food items like sugar and wheat and all that stuff, if done correctly, will last up to 30 years, 30 plus years. I understand they found like a wheat, I think it might have been a kamut or something like that. They found a wheat that they were able to sprout that they found in like the tombs of like King Tut or something like that. So if stored properly, they sprouted. That right there means they're alive. They're still full of nutrition and all that stuff. So if stored properly, your whole grains, sugars, all that stuff can last indefinitely, 30 plus years. But again, you want to rotate in, rotate. Big key thing. And use them. Like I use my whole wheat with my grinder, and I learned to use them. And that's my next rule, number 8, that I follow, is build the skill set required to use your food storage. Okay, sorry, had a little bit of my mom had to come out and get some, and we tried these. Y'all, these are so good. I don't know that they're gonna hold up to be grab and goes. Maybe when they're cold they will, but holy cow, the flavor on these is delicious. Delicious. So, back to my story. My rule number 8 is start building skills and start building gadgets. Like if you're on the minimalist side, great, all power to you. But like for me, having a grain mill, I don't care how minimal you are. If you're going to have food storage with wheat berries, you're going to want something like that. You have, and really I'm finding that being a minimalist and being a food store or a prepping or whatever, they don't really go very well together because I have canning jars. I have close to 1,000 canning jars, maybe a little bit more. So canning requires a pressure canner. If you're going to pressure can, it requires water bath canner. If you're going to be a water bath, if you're going to do that as well. Bowls, prep bowls, all kinds of stuff. So start developing your arsenal of gadgets and skills to use your food storage. Like you can store beans, but if you don't know how to cook them, what's the point? Raw beans are actually toxic. So you want to make sure, or some raw beans are toxic. I think it's mostly kidney beans, but don't quote me on that. Do your own research. So you want to make sure that they get cooked all the way, how to cook them so they're yummy, what flavors to add to them. Same with rice. I've been learning how to make my own gluten-free flours with my grain mill. I have to clean it out really good, but I'm delving into that world. But learning those skills of I can make bread with yeast. I can make bread with sourdough. That is a skill set that I've learned. Making all of my stuff from scratch has been very important to me to learn. That may not be something that's important to you, so start stocking up on the things that you can use to keep you from having to cook from scratch. Like if that means to you having cornbread mix in boxes, have some stored. And things like wheat, the reason I store it is it stores longer. Flour only stores for like a year. And then it starts, like I have been storing white flour and I think some of it got too old and it ended up ruining my whole sourdough starter. Thank goodness I had some in the freezer that I had kept from that mother, and I was able to recreate my starter, but it's still, you know, with the same stuff, but it's not keeping that white flour longer than a year is, I won't do it anymore. Not me personally, but you know, if you're rotating properly, it's not going to be that long anyway. And using what you store, storing what you use. And then you learn to, like the pressure canner, I learned to use the pressure canner so that I can can beans and soups and stuff like that and have them shelf stable on my pantry storage. Rule number 9, create menus. I know that there's some people that don't create menus. Great, all power to you. That's awesome that you can function without those. For me, in order to figure out what I needed to store, I needed something solid that I could see and I could follow to determine what of how much we need. I don't always menu, and often when I menu plan, I end up changing my mind and doing something different. Like I had all this stuff to make fajitas. Did not want fajitas. Did not want them for like 2 or 3 days. And finally, because I had the ingredients, I took them all out, cut them all up, and I made a soup. Perfect. But knowing how to do that with all of that stuff is important. Kind of hard to have a food storage with food that you don't know how to cook or don't know how to do anything with it. So create your menus that works well with your food storage. Finally, my last one, and it's kind of like the strangest one because your food storage is often about survival. However, do not forget the creature comforts. Comfort is important. Knowing your temperature controls. If you're in the middle of winter and you have no power, how are you going to stay warm? How are you going to cook? When I was watching Jessica Soward in the hurricane, she was showing the hurricane and the rain and the winds that were coming through her property. And, you know, she's got kids and a family. How is she cooking for them if you don't have, you know, my thought has always been, I can just go outside and do something in the Dutch oven or something on my Camp Chef or, you know, something like that. But watching her, I realized, wait a second here, it may not always be the conditions that I can be outside cooking. So I have now started in my brain thinking, well, what other ways are there to cook so that I can still feed my family no matter what the weather or the circumstances are outside. The thought that hit my, you know, I do have my garage. What if I didn't have one? What else could I do? So it's thoughts like that. You know, how did they do it back in the day when they didn't have, when a lot of their cooking was based on what the weather was like outside, or anyway, so that's in my brain. So don't forget comfort. Don't forget your cooking options, temperature control, hard candy. If you have dry mouth, having a piece of hard candy can help moisten your mouth. It won't hydrate you, but it will moisten your mouth. If you have little kids that are just struggling because of how hard life is, because there's so much trauma going on in the world that you're wherever, that little sucker can mean all the difference from a temper tantrum or a meltdown to a little bit of comfort. Granted, I don't think that's something you should do every day, but in that kind of a situation, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be a smart thing to have on hand. For me, it's chocolate. Chocolate does not store well long term, but I have chocolate chips galore. I have cocoa powder galore. There's some crisis going on that I've heard that cocoa might be really hard to come by, that it's getting expensive. I did hear that one company was learning to make a chocolate bar or something that didn't even have much chocolate in it. So learning to, you know, having stuff like that stored so that if, say for the next 2 years, I actually probably have 2 years worth of chocolate because we don't eat it that much, but when we do, I'm set. I don't have to worry about making sure that I have chocolate despite what's going on with the chocolate industry or the chocolate plants or whatever's going on. And then last but not least, entertainment. We're in such a stimulated world these days. We have switches, we have computers, we have cell phones, we have constant information coming into our system. One of the things that's really, like, even my husband, who my dream date or my dream weekend would be going to a forest, a cabin out in the forest. We heat up in the winter time, even, where we can run a hot wood stove. I can cook on the wood stove. I can cook outside. I can, everything is like bare basics. I wouldn't mind a bathroom. I don't mind a little bit of power, but we don't have to have it. A dry cabin would be awesome, where, we have to haul in water and to me, that's beautiful. To him, he's like, well, what am I going to do? He's into that, a little bit more into that constant stimulation. So entertainment, like having some cards and some dice and some, Yahtzee pad, something, anything that would help entertain during a time of hardship. So those are my 10 rules. I'm going to tell you right now, the very hardest thing to do is start. Just start. If you constantly overthink it or make it harder than it really is, it'll never happen. Just start. Go out there when you're shopping for this week's groceries. You know that you're going to make spaghetti. Grab an extra jar of spaghetti sauce and an extra pack of spaghetti noodles. Or your mac and cheese. Grab an extra mac and cheese. Whatever you do to do your family food, grab extra. Granola bars. If you're buying a thing of granola bars to last you the week for the kids' lunches, grab a second one. It's not going to hurt to have that second one, even if, later on down the road, as long as you're rotating, it's not going to get too old. It's not going to get, those things last on the shelves forever. So grab that second one, grab a third one. If you find tomato sauce on sale, grab an extra. Grab what you can afford. Do whatever you can. Just start. I started with things on sale, and I had a tendency, so I would go to the store and I would buy what I thought was a year's supply of something that was not expensive. That's how I started. So like with rice, I started at Costco getting 25-pound bags of rice, and back then they were only like $8 a bag, maybe $11 for a 25-pound bag. And so I grabbed one of those instead of a small bag from the store, like a 10-pound or smaller. I grabbed a big thing of rice. Same with wheat flour, same with sugar. The next time I went, I grabbed a thing of wheat flour. The next time I went, I grabbed a thing of sugar. And next thing I know, my mindset started shifting from what do I need this week to what do I need long term. And doing that with sales was really money efficient. This is going to be a very long video, I think. Store water. We have water bottles downstairs that we purchased. We purchased the plastic water bottles. We bought enough cases. We bought so many cases. We've been here almost 10 years and I still have cases of water bottles down there. I hate those things. So we're going to get rid of them. We're going to use them in the Berkey or out in the garden or something. That's for me not an effective way to do it. I like the 55-gallon drums, and we'll probably get a few of those. Somebody I was talking to said they had like a 1,000-gallon tank that was filled with water for a rainy day. Not a rainy day, a dry day. They have access to a lot of water should anything happen. I don't know that I have the mentality for that much water. Start storing money, like start putting aside, getting yourself a fund, even if it's $1 a paycheck, even if it's $10 a paycheck, whatever you can afford, start something somewhere. Just start. Once you start creating a habit with it, it'll become every day. That's part of that thinking, shifting your thinking, and start with your staples. Start with your survivable staples: rice, beans, sugar, flour. If you don't eat sugar, like we don't eat sugar. I use coconut sugar, I use maple syrup, I use honey, I use stevia, and I use monk fruit and molasses. Those are our big sweeteners. We do have organic raw cane sugar, and I do have demerara sugar. I probably will get some sucanat as well, because those are all things that are that have nutritional value. I'm not into the refined sugar. So I still have some from when we did use it, but we have shifted the way. So I store maple syrup, I store honey, which stores indefinitely. I store molasses, I store, I'm almost out of maple, coconut sugar. Date sugar is another one. So those are the sugars that I'm going to store. Wheat, I have tons of wheat berries. Pasta, we don't do a lot of pasta. rice pasta is the way, if I'm going to do it, it's going to be rice pasta, or I like the sweet potato starch pasta. So we do store up on those, but I don't have a year's supply. We don't eat it enough. Powdered milk is something that you should have on hand if you have kids that like cereal. Now, that's one of those things, use what you store what you eat, or eat what you store what you eat. Powdered milk is not something we eat. We don't use it in like as a glass of milk, but we don't drink a lot of milk. We don't eat cold cereal often. So what I do with powdered milk is I just use that for making yogurts, using it in my mixes, like my pancake mix that we use, just add water, brownie mixes, anything like that you just add water. That would be something that I would use my powdered milk in. If it came down to it where we had to consume it as a milk, I would be fine with it. Yeah. So that is my food storage spiel. I'm going to continue on with this, my next video, hopefully next week. That's my goal. And it will be indefinitely based on food storage. And so I will be showing you recipes. I'll be showing you ideas. If I've got something from the store that's to my food storage, I'll show that to you. That fun stuff. So thank you for joining me on this long-winded adventure of Fork in the Loaf, and we will see you next time. Please subscribe if you haven't, and share this with your friends.